When I got my first overlocker in the 90s, most people, a lot of people call them surgers in the US. They seem intimidating at first when you need to thread. There's 4 threads. 2 of them are knitting each other, right, with the loopers. And yet, on a conventional overlocker, it's not that complicated, but you do have to follow a certain order and a certain path. And Bernina always color codes the threading chart, so that's not too hard. But you have to do it in the right order and hit all the points. And to a lot of people, that's intimidating at first because you're used to one needle and on a sewing machine, and that's very straightforward. So what the mission here, and again, the Bernette mission is make the machine affordable without sacrificing quality. So Bernina works very closely, and I recognize some Bernina features on this that you won't find on other brands. So and Bernette being, again, we have a manufacturer who makes value hardware, works in very close concert with Bernina for the quality, and Bernina is very, very strict. They are Swiss. They do not deviate on quality. It is part of the DNA of the brand, and I tell you, we are obsessed with quality. It's like we're quality freaks, so which is a good thing, right? That's why I came to work for Bernina, because the high standard appealed to me. So combining that with value hardware, you get your basic, what we call a 2, 3, 4 thread overlock or serger. That's your standard. That's your, that's like a car with a transmission, right? It drives. So you can do mostly 3 and 4 threads, right? 3 threads is to finish an edge. 4 threads is how you build these seams like on knit garments. So you can make t-shirts. You can whip a t-shirt in less than 10 minutes on one of these, right? So that's 3 and 4 thread. 2 threads is usually some, I want to say, fancy or more decorative applications where you can do like flat lock, where you do 2 pieces of fabric and they will flip, and you can get either a ladder stitch, but you can get really, really good finishes on that. So it's got all the basics of a 2, 3, and 4 thread serger. Now, what's special is that every aspect of an overlocker that may have been a bit of a hindrance or that has a learning curve has been shaved by the design of this machine. One, something you'll see right off the bat, it has a freehand system, right? And it has a knee bar that will lift, that will lift the presser foot. That is uncommon on sergers, on overlockers in general. Now, in this category, this price category, it's just about unheard of, and this has it. Just like on the sewing machine, you want to put your fabric presenting right to the machine, you lift the foot. If you left the foot up, you can just nudge the bar, it will bring the foot down, you start sewing twice as fast. Not speed-wise, but in terms of preparation. So that's that. The cutting bit, I was having fun this morning. I was playing with it because this is not my machine, so I had to invite it to the party. And the cutting bit is nice and big, which means that when the knife cuts the fabric at the edge, that's the serging part. It will actually contain your trimmings as you work. You don't have to empty all the time. The star of the show is these 2 little ports here. This will, and there's a button here, this will literally thread the loopers automatically, just air threading. That takes the challenge of threading. And my mother has arthritis in her hands, her thumbs don't, she can't knit anymore. Threading something like this that is not an air threader, like a conventional, would be difficult because she cannot maneuver her hands as easily anymore. This, you just present the thread into the little holes, press the button, it goes out, the thread comes out of the loopers, you are threaded. Not only that, on conventional sergers, you always have to thread the upper looper first, followed by the lower looper. There's a galactic law of the serger. On a conventional manual threader, if you reverse the order, your thread chain will break because of the way the loopers crisscross each other, right? It has nothing to do with the thread. It has to do with the sequence of events, what I call the mechanical ballet underneath, right? So here, none of that, because this is basically tunneling the thread through the machine, popping it right into the loopers. It does not matter what order you put it in. So this morning I threaded backwards, according to convention, and it felt good because I did not have to remember what the order is anymore. I just did this one, that one, done. So air threading is brilliant. Then you have all your regular stuff. The knife is right here. One thing I should mention right off the bat, all the controls are on the outside. Some sergers, you have to open the door, open the left side to get to the knife or to get to the cutting width and stuff like that, because that part of the mechanism is here. Not on this. The ergonomics were very important. You can lift the presser foot right here on the side. You don't even have to reach back there anymore. There is no lever back there. It's here. Then all your controls, the stitch length, which is on every overlocker out there. And a good overlocker today, most of them do have what we call differential feed, right? So that you can sew perfect seams on knits and wovens without any kind of distortion. So differential feed is here. You have a hand wheel in case you need it. Typically you don't, but you can use the hand wheel all you want. Before I close the door, a couple of things. Bernina was one of the first companies to ever put all the tools, like the screwdriver, the brush, the tweezers, and all that you typically use with the serger, to put them either on the door or just inside. Here, they're just inside the door. And so you don't have to go hunt for your tools. If you're good, you put them back on their slot here. They are always there when you use the machine. So again, time saver. So when you close this, and there's a little switch here for your air threading, all in front of you. You don't need to dig into the machine to do anything, and all the innards threading is done through these two little ports. That's it. You don't have to get in there. It gets in there for you. So when that's closed, you have your cutting width here, and then remember I said Bernina took their know-how and worked with a value hardware manufacturer, right? That's the definition of a Bernette. Well, they have a cutting width, and then we have what's called MTC, micro thread control. So if you remember the old days of like a shortwave radio, there were two knobs. There's a coarse knob and the fine knob, right? You need to fine tune. So the cutting width on a serger is how wide the fabric is going to go off the edge before it gets cut, and then the thread wrap around it. So actually, let me pull a sample. So you have the cutting width is what's trapped into the stitching, the red stitching here. So that's the coarse adjustment. But when you sew a garment, whether it's plain cotton or you're sewing a garment on polar fleece or sweat fleece, right? Or you're redoing a seam, you may have calibrated the 2 layers, you adjust your cutting width, it's all beautiful. Then you put in a cuff, and suddenly you have 4 layers. And then you go, why is my seam too tight? That's because all that extra loft inside the stitching is eating the thread up, if you want. It's causing the thread to tighten up around the seam. So that micro thread control is where you can just basically fine tune that. It says either ease up, allow the thread to go a little further out, or if you started on something thick and now you're transitioning that same seam into something thinner, you can actually tweak in and reduce the amount of thread slightly that will be, or the fabric rather, that will be cut and allowed into the seam. So you can you do coarse and fine adjustments so that you don't have to play with just the cutting width. The cutting width, as I said, is a coarse adjustment. When you play with that to fine tune a seam, it's easy to overshoot, and it takes more time to troubleshoot or fine tune your seam, where the fine adjustment fine tunes your seam in native mode if you want. It's much easier to do it that way. Then you have this little lever here that you retract for rolled hems. You do napkins, you want to just a fine little rolled edge at the edge. You just withdraw this, and then you basically, the finger will withdraw, the fabric will roll over. You adjust your seam accordingly. There is a quick start guide where all this is all explained. And there's also the manual is pretty thorough. So you go to the page for a rolled hem. If you've never done one, it will walk you through the process. Super easy. That little lever, by the way, Bernina was first to introduce this in the 90s on their sergers. And it made it, because before that, you had to unscrew the stitch plate to replace with a rolled hem plate. And that little lever has been really a huge time saver, because all it does is it moves the stitch finger in and out. So when you don't have to do anything with tools, you just use it there. You have 1 or 2 needles here, nice and easy. There's a thread cutter on the outside here. And do you see my red thread is going up to the thread cutter on the side? It's still holding it from when I worked this morning. So when you finish, you chain off like on a regular serger. You can cut up here and it will hold your thread. So when you start, you don't have to worry about this thread chain coming here and dangling around and maybe getting trapped into the next seam. It stays put at the back, and you just start the next seam and it will go with it. So again, another time saver and a trouble preventer, because it keeps the chain of your stitches controlled at the back. Super easy threading, lay-in threading. So you clip at the back, you go here. You don't need to go around anything. It just goes down here, and then you cross the bridge for the needles, for instance, and then thread over here. By the time you get here, it looks pretty much like a sewing machine. So it's super easy to thread. And then on the back, on the outside, on the left side, there is a knob there for the presser foot pressure. For instance, if you're doing a soft polar fleece, if your presser foot pressure is too high on any sewing machine, it will tend to stretch because polar fleece is kind of spongy. Well, if you're sewing one of those, you test the scrap. Always test the seam anyway on a sewing machine, right? So you test the scrap and you can reduce the presser foot pressure, and it's right here on the outside. So far I have, other than air threading and seeing my tools, I've not done anything on the inside. I have not had to open anything on the inside. I'm going to take this extension table off to show it to you. That's a big surface that you can add. It's included with the machine, and it is fastened to the machine. When it's on, it's on. So that would give you a big table for like big flat projects. You want to do hemming on a big batch of fabric, that will support it better. If you're doing something smaller or something that needs to just fall off the edge, then you can actually use it without the table. And better yet, let me put this down. Better yet, free arm. In this price category, a free arm overlocker is almost unheard of. So not only you have all these refined features that would be available on high-end sergers for a much higher price, you have these features here, and you have a free arm. So if you want to do like cuffs, you want to shorten the sleeves on a sweatshirt because it's too long, you could actually just put it on the free arm here and redo your seam there. You don't have to open all the side seams to flatten this out and do it the long way. So that would be actually a lot easier. And then if you're doing just smaller projects, this free arm cover goes on, and then you still have a flat bed here for smaller pieces. And then the table will take care. The beauty of it is that this goes on the free arm, then the table goes on to this. You don't need to take one thing out to put the other thing in. It's all modular. It all goes in. So everything is on the outside. The only time you open this would be to go clean inside. You clean regularly, right? But you would take the plate off here to get access to the inside, which is standard for a free arm. But the rest, you don't need to open this beast up to sew because it's not a beast. This thing is really designed for sewing ergonomics. Again, just like the BERNETTE 77, you focus on your project, on your seams, on your sequence, and you don't have to worry about opening this, because a lot of the sergers in this price category, you open the left side to get to the knife, sometimes to the, some of them, the older ones even, they used to do the stitch width inside. Everything here is on the outside. And that's something that Bernie never looked for, that everything would be easy to get to. You don't have to, and there's no controls down here. So when your fabric is here, your project's being sewn, you don't need to lift the project to get under to tweak a setting. You can do everything straight out here from the top and on the side, on the outside. So again, your project goes through, the controls are completely separated from the fabric base. So you're good to go. And again, when it's time to bring the foot down and start sewing, the freehand system here on the side will do that for you. And it's basically lift and drop the foot. And if you had the foot already up, you can just release it. Release it and bring it down to as you sew, as you prepare against the knife, which is standard serger operation, just made easier. So in terms of value, oh yeah, you can carry the thing, of course, and then you can collapse this if you need to bring it somewhere. Collapse this, grab the handle, and go with it. You can carry it with the scrap catcher, the cutoff bin already attached, so it's nice and easy package to use. Ergonomics are there, performance is there, and all the things that people who look at a serger for the first time say it's a bit intimidating, all those things, were basically shaved off, because threading, operation, settings, all on the outside, all easy to do.